Welcome back, blood fans, to another spine-tingling season of Reign of Blood. This is season 4, and we're diving even deeper into the captivating world of sharpened needles, where every prick can spark joy, and every heartbeat resonates with electrifying thrill of connection. I am one of your hosts, Miss Kitten, and this is your sharp conversation platform that celebrates the exquisite beauty of blood play, both its artistry and in its intimate nuances. As we gear up for our next big event or deal, get ready to immerse yourselves in stories that will ignite your passions and challenge your boundaries like never before. From the empowering narratives of those who boldly embrace their desires to the intricate exploration of trust and safety in the realm of kink, we'll delve into it all. But be warned, the season is dedicated to those who dare to explore. So consider this your content warning for discussions that will touch on blood, sharp objects, and emotional landscapes they traverse. So whether you're tuning in from the comfort of your own home or while embarking on a midnight adventure, grab your headphones and prepare to embrace the exhilarating. It's time to immerse ourselves in the rich narratives that weave together the fabric of our vibrant, bloody community. Hey, amazing listeners. I'm so excited to be back with Needles again and season 4 of the Reign of Blood podcast. This is your host, Miss Kitten, and I have a really exciting episode. I am joined by 3 incredible humans, 2 of which I know, 1 of which I'm getting to know and really enjoying that journey. We have the team from Melbourne, Australia, Paradox Twitchy _sub, and Poke the Bear. Welcome, guys. It's so great to have you in my dungeon virtually again. And 2 of you are already becoming favorites of ours. And Twitchy _sub, we're really excited to meet you. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, guys, I think the easiest way is I know who all of you are, and that's probably why I reached out to you, hopefully. But my listeners don't. So do you want to just go around the room and introduce yourselves to my listeners and tell them why you are sort of why you found the world of kink and stopped becoming a muggle? And left the vanilla world behind you. So maybe you can just give our listeners a brief introduction. And Paradox, you are the most beautiful member of the panel that you're sitting on. So I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you, Ms. Kay. I appreciate that. My name is Paradox. I've been in the kink scene on and off for probably 8-ish years now, but very heavily into sort of precision needling and decorative needles for the past 12 months. There are like lots of parts of the kink scene and facets of the kink scene that I'm interested in, but sharps is, my one true love. And these 2 next to me, I think, will probably have similar things to say.
This is Poke the Bear, very similar. Also 8 years or so into kink, and the precision needle part just really works well with the way my mind works for it. And I really just like it to all be straight and in line where I want it.
I love that. And you guys are not giving us, before I go to Twitchy _sub, you guys are not giving us enough information there. What you're not telling my listeners is that you guys are the stencil lab, and that our amazing stencils come from you guys, and we absolutely love connecting, and that you are really easy to connect with, and that you're always willing to help us make new stencils and to collab ideas. So don't sell yourself short. We are really appreciative, and the Stencil Lab is becoming a big part of our lives, and we love what you do.
Thank you so much for those kind words. So myself, Paradox, and Poke the Bear, we're both the Stencil Lab on FetLife, and we've been creating sort of some fun needle play stencils for all sort of levels of needle play that people can enjoy, and we love seeing people recreate our stuff online. It's just so exciting, like logging on and seeing people tag us in their depictions of our work. It's like the most amazing feeling. And we love sharing them with you and Reign of Blood as a whole. And yeah, being a part of, you know, some of your classes and workshops. It's been fantastic. And now I'll let Twitchy talk about himself.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Twitchy, Twitchy underscore sub, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Yeah, the underscore is kind of funny. So I'm the older one of the group here. So I've been around the kink scene a little bit longer, but in more recent years, I think I've immersed myself more fully. A little bit more experienced as a needle top. Never been so much on the precision until I came into contact with these two cool people here and have started doing a few stencils as well. I'm a better needle top than I am a needle bottom, but I certainly took one for the team recently when we did the suspension. So I've been subbing to Mistress Zoe for about 8 years now. So I'm very closely associated to the Studio of Secrets.
Amazing. And I think you just mentioned the topic of today's conversation, which is the needle suspension. And it's something that's a bit uncommon. We see a lot of hook suspensions, and that's kind of the holy grail. And needle suspensions just seem slightly out of everybody's reach. And I'm glad you mentioned that you are connected to your mistress and that the studio was a part of it, because I think what we're about to talk about for me is a team effort, and I don't think it happens with one person. And I think we're already starting to see the pieces coming into play with your established community, with a space that can support you. So I think that is just important to highlight in the beginning, that we wouldn't do the stuff alone, and that ideas are great individually, but it takes a community to put them together. It takes huge amounts of resources, and just looking at the resources already sitting in front of me, I've got two people that I know are completely committed to risk management and precision in their own work. You've got an established studio, and then you've got somebody with a lot of experience in the community. So a great start and a privilege to be able to check in on that. But I think we often sell it short how much the connection over the years creates the space and the container for us to be able to do the things we do.
Yeah, look, we probably have been planning this suspension for the best part of 9 months. A huge amount of practice of little individual steps happened along the journey. So we would do things like practice knots. What's the knot that we're going to use? Before we finalized the methodology for the lift, we were figuring out center of gravity and trying to figure out how we'd make everything go up straight. So we really put a lot of effort in, and we also had quite a big team. There was 8 of us in total on the day. Perhaps 2 of the roles were relatively minor, but other than that, everyone had quite a significant role. So, and I was super lucky, a very experienced team that we had. So that made it nice for me, but it was also a real privilege to have such talented people as part of the crew.
So where did the ideas initiate? Who started it? How did you get 8 cats in a bag with a whole bunch of
That's
string?
a good question. That's a good question. I think the idea had been kind of percolating for maybe a couple of years, and another member of the community, Das Ubedom, had a half-made. If anyone's seen the picture, there's an arced pipe that has lots of rings on it. So that was partially made. So late last year, we headed towards finishing that. And that then gave us the drive to start putting all the rest of the bits and pieces in play to pull it together as a successful strategy. I wasn't necessarily going to be the first to go up, but we had a lot of logistical issues, and it got to the point where it's going to be easier if I just throw myself on the slab and we go from there.
If you know you want to do it, I mean.
Yeah, that's right. I did want to do it. I just wasn't going to be first, but the logistics just were quite challenging. And the lady that we had in mind has a very tough work schedule, but she weighs 50 kilos, and she was going to be the most ideal person, a very experienced needle player and sharp bottom. But making the planets align was difficult, so it was still a really cool process. And I think
wait,
I was just going to
no,
say,
sorry for
that's
interrupting.
okay. No, I was
Please
just going to
continue.
say, Paradox had this really cool comment about the experience that everyone just gelled. I don't know whether you want to elaborate on that.
No, definitely. I felt like the energy in the room on the day, and I think we all commented on it afterwards. Everyone was just so in sync. You know, there was so much planning and organization that goes into these things, and sometimes they don't eventuate in the way that you think they're going to. But it just sort of felt like one of those days where it couldn't have been more perfect. Everyone was just so aligned and so in tune, and it was almost like meditative, the whole experience. Just watching everyone in the room and being a part of it was incredible.
And I think that attributes a lot to the planning. Like I think those moments happen more the older we get and the better we risk mitigate and the better we plan. Like they seem to be much more obtainable in my later years, in my twilight years, than they were in my youth, when I just was doing things in a rush. And I think this is one of those scenes that's never going to happen in a rush. So where do you start with it? What was your starting point on this whole thing? You had the frame, and then where do we go from there?
Yeah, so we got the frame, and then we actually spent quite a lot of time messing around with the mechanics and the physics of how we were going to do the lift. And we tried so many different ways. And then fortuitously for us, the Studio of Secrets has 2 winches that are separated just far enough apart that we could attach each end of the pipe to a winch. And it actually became much simpler once we adopted that methodology. So like I said before, the 3 of us here had practiced just trying a lift on one of my calves once. So at that point, we were practicing the knots, practicing the depth, practicing, for me, what it was going to feel like to put tension on. And I think as the weeks and months went by, because we'd chipped away at all the little pieces, it became a little bit of a well-oiled machine. We just had to make sure that the other people that hadn't been part of all the practicing were brought up to date with what we were doing. So then on the day, I mean, for me personally, the last week when we'd locked the date in maybe a month ago, the last week the nerves were really hitting. My biggest fear was crashing and burning on the day when everyone's put so much effort in. But on the actual day, my nerves disappeared. And I've actually felt quite calm. And yeah, I think we were eating pizza half an hour before we started and stuff like that. So
very calm.
Yeah.
Who
I
did
had
the
a hectic
piercing?
work day, and sorry, what was that?
Who did the piercing for you?
So Paradox was one of the piercers. Mistress Zoe was a piercer, and there was another party who's a medical professional was also part of the piercing team. I don't know whether we
And
can say her name.
how many
can say
needles?
that.
How many needles did you guys use? What was your biometrics on that?
There was
And
120 18-gauge needles.
okay.
So
And
I mean, this is where I'm so privileged, is that because I know these guys from the stencil lab, I got this custom set of stencils made up for calf, thigh, backside, back, arms. So on the day, I had this custom set of stencils to lay out all the needles, which was just kind of perfect, really, right?
It was actually very cool seeing all the stencils. Like Twitchy was on the massage table, and all the stencils were set up on like a a spanking bench like laid out. It was very cool to just like see them and like slowly bringing them across and transferring them onto his skin. It was very cool.
I think a big part about getting the tension right is about getting all of the needles symmetrical on either side of the body so that you are not lifting from different points.
It's a good point.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that nearly went wrong, probably 9 months ago, the beginning of starting to try these things, was we had the needles with the hubs on the exterior of the body. So the needles were pointing in towards the spine. And when we put some tension on them, all the points were digging into the skin, and it was just awful. So that was a pretty early change, that all the hubs ran down the center of the body and were pointing outwards. But little things like that just made such a big difference. And we were very mindful of, sorry?
Why? Sorry, I'm totally interrupting you, but why the choice of 18 gauge? What made you settle on that?
I was too much of a sook for 16s.
16 and hypodermics are horrible. They are my worst needle on the planet. I will have 112 gauge piercing needles before I'll have 5 of those 16. So 16s is just, I think I totally agree with you that the ratio of the length of bevel to the diameter of the bevel is just horrible. It's punchy and it's pushy and it's got too much drag, and I'm with you. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was a good size where I was confident it wasn't going to bend, or, it was going to have enough rigidity to hold its own strength. Whereas if you go too much smaller, there might have been not necessarily risk, but you're putting a little bit more pressure or reliance on the integrity of the needle.
And the strings that you guys use were tied individual strings, or one string running the whole way through? What was your decision on that?
That is all individual strings, and I think that might have been the longest part of it. Was how many hours did you put into tying each one?
The tying, that was brutal.
And this is just the time before the day, so like the tying off of the loops, not the tying on the day of each string to each needle.
Yeah, they were all pre-prepared in packs and colors and where on the body they were to go. And
just explain how so you pre-tied them. I'm trying to imagine why you would need to pre-tie them. So
we pre-tied a loop on one end only, so that it was very easy attached to the needle.
And you just split that over like a noose almost over the needle.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a lark's head style over the needles.
And I wanted the loops to be, I wanted the loops to be quite symmetrical. So I put quite a bit of time into making them. They would have been no more than 2 or 3 mils different across the whole lot.
That also helped to lock it onto the actual needle when it pulled in. It pulls its own tension as it goes upwards.
Yeah. And I mean and then you gather all the ends at the top, or how are you then tensioning them from the top individually or in group sets?
They were then in groups of 5 or 6, depending on how many needles were below each lifting point. They were pulled through the top and then tensioned slightly, like just by hand, to get relatively even. And then they were tied into a clove hitch on the lifting rig. And there was a few minor adjustments as each one went, just to get the tension right on each one. But probably tied in groups of 5 or 6.
Okay, that's absolutely fabulous.
The other
the
other consideration we had on the strings was, because they're going up in a slight triangle, that we wanted the needle to be pulling as close to 90 degrees as possible. So we were also thinking about the curvature of the body, and we didn't want either end to be taking more tension than the other, because that's when you might get a needle pull out or try to pull out. So I wasn't part of that whole piece, but the placement of the stencils was absolutely perfect. And
I think you literally got the best person for that job. Like, I don't think you could have employed.
You get to measure up for the stencils.
Yeah, that's right.
You'd hope it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
I've set up for hook suspensions, and I've participated in hook suspensions, and the prep for me physically on my own body, and the actual suspension and what I expected were just all miles apart. How did you prepare physically and emotionally for this, and was it what you expected it to be on the day?
That's a good question. I guess my preparation is, well, I think what I saw, as I mentioned before, was that the nerves kind of dissipated as I got closer to the date, because I was really confident with the preparation we'd done, and also super confident with the people in the team. Like, we're a pretty tight bunch. We know each other pretty well. Originally, it was going to be at a public event. We have a needle play event each month at the Studio of Secrets, but I kind of got to the point where I was nervous about failing in front of a larger group, and felt it would be better to fail in front of close friends who aren't going to,
I want to hug you.
yeah. So I think that was a good decision. And then on the day, as I say, I had a busy work day, which did take my mind off it a fair bit. But once we were down there and getting ready, there was that moment where everyone was sitting around having some food, and no one was really making a move to get started. And there was this awkward 5 or 10 minutes from me where I went, I think I'm going to have to lead the pack here and go, okay, we're starting now. So because there's good facilities down there, I had a shower with Chlorhex soap, and basically then we kicked it off. In terms of the needle throwing, we started off with Mistress Zoe throwing the first few, just to try and, I don't know, for me to get my head wrapped around the needles. I'm not a super experienced needle bottom. And then the other two came in, and we just had 3 going pretty much full speed. I had 2 minor breaks during the course of getting the 120.
They were very minor.
They were pretty minor breaks. So I think the needles were over in about 20 minutes, weren't they? It was pretty quick.
Yeah, it was very quick. I mean, it got to a point where all 3 of us were needling at the same time, and
yeah, which for me was a lot, because I'm not that experienced. And then I actually found the tying of the strings on actually really quite nice, because all of a sudden the touch changes from sharp, ouchy, pointy to people fiddling around with bits of string and wrapping them around the end of the needle. So for me, that was really pleasant. And then once we started the lift, I think it was the 3rd go when I went right up. So the first one, a little bit of tension went on, and I got them to back it off. The second time, my weight just started to go off the table, and I sort of slid around a little bit as the lifting rig found its natural position for me, and we went down. And for me, it's kind of about the whole breathing thing you do when you're doing impact play, or hard, heavy play. And so I took 3 or 4 really slow, deep breaths and said, hey, let's have a go. And we just went for it in that one go, which was really cool. And I have to say, it was super intense at the beginning. And I remember saying, get the photos quick, because this might not last long. And then something weird happens to your brain, and maybe all the good juices kick in, and all of a sudden I was calm and realized I was okay. And I think I was up for 4 to 5 minutes.
it was almost like time stopped a bit in that
Yeah.
moment. Everyone in the room was just total silence, holding their breath. It was
really cool. And I wasn't aware that was how that part would play out. I thought when the tension first went on, I was kind of going, this is a lot. Like, I don't know how long I can endure this, but hopefully I'll get up in the air and we'll get a couple of photos. But like I say, once I was there, it seemed to just happen. It was okay. I don't really know
Such
how
an
to explain that.
incredible story to listen to. I found the first moment of being like of the pulling until the skin sort of stretches to that maximum bit. I found that super frigging sore. I didn't expect anything to be that sore. I hadn't kind of bargained. I had bargained on
my hooks were really big, so I bargained on big needles being the sore bit. So I was a bit surprised by the intensity of that pain. I found that pain liberating about a year later because it changed my threshold completely. Like anything is manageable after that pain. Literally, like I'm like, I've done that. I'm okay. And then I found it very disorientating when the floor was no longer under my feet and I was at that floaty feeling, made me feel a bit nauseous, and I also came back down. I needed to just reassess myself. So I loved the advice and the breathing. And I also just the calm and the gentle smiles on everyone's faces when they remember the event tells me how serene and special it really was. So that is just incredible. And then your aftercare for something like that, did you find that there was, I mean, you haven't had much needle experience, but did you find that there was a difference in the drop that you normally have from a scene to the scene that you just done?
Really oddly, I didn't end up dropping, which I was expecting. Maybe I would, but it, certainly that 1 to 2 day mark, I actually didn't this time around. I have in the past, but I was surprised. I was expecting it because it was such a big thing, but I think I was just kind of elated, and you end up feeling like a bit of a lion, and I've conquered this thing. Really cool after so much effort and preparation, and all the input from everyone. It's a pretty cool feeling.
And 120 needles that lifted you off the floor and hung you in the air, that like the rest of the world is trying to do the same thing and has had not the same success. So it's a huge achievement, but just the story is beautiful because it's one of connecting community, and it's one of exploring and collaborating together. For the other tops involved, how did you guys feel afterwards? Did you find that there was a drop afterwards?
I didn't experience a drop. I think in maybe like the couple of hours afterwards, we hung around for a bit. We all ate some cake afterwards, which was fun to sort of debrief and eat some cake.
Oh yeah. One of the team had a birthday, didn't they?
Yeah. And then I found when Poke the Bear and I got home and we were laying in bed that night, just like couldn't sleep, looking at each
I think
other.
we were up till 3:30 in the morning, both at work in the morning.
Just reminiscing on like how cool it was to not just do it, but like be a part of it with such an amazing team and in such a great space. And yeah, with just this amazing energy surrounding the whole experience. It's incredible. I didn't experience a drop. I tend to not really experience drop after play where I'm topping. What about you?
I didn't experience any drop from it, but yes, for the next few days there was a lot of talking back and forward between the whole team about it and how awesome it was to be a part of.
The group chat in like the days afterwards was just like all day, every day. People sending like new photos and just like being like, remember this part and remember this part. Which is cool. You're just sitting at your day-to-day 9 to 5 job and you're reminiscing on this like fucking awesome thing that you've done, and your co-workers are like, what did you do last night? And you're like, oh, not much.
We're just hanging around.
I literally hung out with some friends, not much.
I mean, we did it on a work night, which
Seriously, Monday night.
We did it on a Monday night. And quite literally, one of my bosses next day said to me, "Did you have a nice night last night?" Yes, I did.
Just hung about.
Thanks for asking.
Hung about a few feet in the air.
Yeah.
God, hang out with a few friends. I'll do it again next week. I've been planning it for a while, so it was nice to see it finally happen. What was the aftercare like wound wise? Was there a big difference in normal needle wounds to these needle wounds as they'd been stretched? Did you do anything in special? Was there any air caught underneath? What did that look like when the needles came out?
So there was a little bit of air caught under one of the needles in the arm, but the arm I delegated to the medical professional anyway. And she was really cool at working that back out through one of the holes before I even got up. So I did another shower with the medical, the claw hex soap, and my aftercare for something like that is I would always make sure I've got clean cotton clothing, and I think there was only one that might have leaked a little bit overnight.
Wow.
And I did
Okay.
nothing else other than that. I did nothing special. I don't put anything on, no creams, or I just don't. But I mean, I do take keeping clean pretty seriously, and like I say, the first couple of days I prefer to wear cotton and nothing that's going to make your body heat up and not draw moisture away if there's any moisture there. But that's always worked well for me.
And the side
And
from the
with-
needle all basically gone now too,
Yeah.
right?
Was it 2 weeks ago?
I think 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. You can vaguely see a couple on my back, I think, but beyond that, even the arms within a week were kind of gone.
That's phenomenal. My hooks one hook tore a little bit, so that one took really long. But my other three took 2.5 months. And
Really?
I heal stupidly quickly. Like I bloodlined on, I don't know, when was it, on Thursday, and they're already scabbing and finished and done. So my skin heals really quickly, and it took me a really long time to heal those marks. It was interesting to see that. It was also, I found the experience very overwhelming, the drop. I never drop, and I dropped hectically. So it's interesting to hear how it differed with the needles, but I think you're also more supported, so there's less trauma on individual points. That would make a bit more sense. But
Look,
yeah,
I think that's really true. I
Yeah.
mean, we'd sort of done calculations. I mean, I'm not a big bloke, so I don't weigh a truckload, and it was down to 0.6 of a kilo per needle or something silly like that, spread across all the needles. Obviously, some on the back were carrying more than, say, the arms or the legs, but it wasn't a silly amount of weight per needle.
There wasn't even a huge amount of bleeding when they came out. None really. They all pulled pretty even, so it was spread quite well, and yeah, there was no tearing and very little bleeding.
Mm.
So maybe drink some more water. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, were you dehydrated?
Yes.
How long was it from after the awkward 10 minutes in that room where nobody was, where they were all sort of sitting in silence, to when you motivated your team to get started, to when the needles were finished and you were sitting up and eating cake? How long do you reckon that took?
You reckon maybe 2 hours for
I
that
think
one?
I
2
think
hours.
you laying down and the needles beginning to you hanging in the air without the massage table was about 2 hours. And then,
Okay.
yeah, maybe
Yep.
slightly more.
So 2.5 hours.
That's incredible. Just from a stringing perspective, to put 100 strings on somebody, yeah.
Well, with having the with the strings pre-prepared, lots of people could be putting them on the needle at once, and then Matt and Paradox took over on getting them up and doing the tensioning. So I think there was probably 4 people, perhaps
There's
putting-
4 doing the strings.
Yeah.
4 people putting the strings on, and then these
Mhm.
2 guys did all the tensioning and the tying. So that made it go really quite quickly.
The
Yeah,
pre-tying
we-
definitely made it easy,
Mm.
and because they also like self-tension then onto the actual
Yeah.
needle, the pre-tying made a huge difference.
And we made the
How long-
strings really long so that they could just be then hacked because it's really awkward to tie multiple strings if you're scrapping for how to get the knot. You're running out of string. So I really didn't care about how long they were. And I'd sooner have them long and we cut a
Longer.
bit off, which I think you did, didn't you?
Yeah, I think there were like at least 2.5 feet worth of
Yeah.
string that we cut off on every string.
But it's
so-
much easier to deal with that when you're trying to tie a knot and you've got gloves and fingers and thumbs everywhere than trying to fight over the last 300 mil of string and try and get a knot in there. So I think that was an advantage.
Huge advantage. We've tried it on 2 separate occasions that were more successful, but we have never managed to be fast enough between the needles and the threading. And the threading for us has always taken 2.5 hours at least, starting a starting point. So making that time shorter makes the whole experience, just gives everybody capacity in the experience. But your beam is a really clever idea, and the two wenches, I can understand how that would tension the beam and give you a better lift and a much more secure lift. It's also a very good idea. So cool, guys. I'm just in awe of what you've done, and just a huge amount of respect. If you had to do it again, what changes would you make?
I do have one, and it's kind of an odd one. It's preparing the photographs a little bit more fully. So we were mindful that not everyone wanted to be in a photo that might go online, and I think planning the photo so that you get what you want at the end. I have regrets that I didn't at the beginning organize for everyone to come in for one photo, and of course we can't recreate that one.
Oh, we can.
I'm
So-
gonna say that I reckon you guys would be pretty good at recreating it, and I think you should take it as a challenge. But yeah, so a lot of what we do is either for fetish porn or for photography as art. And I will tell you, there is a whole trick and secret to the camera thing, and what you just said about planning it into the scene is really important, and just having a we want this photo, and having a chat with somebody who can be a separate photographer is super important. I do a lot of photography in my vanilla life, but in my it's a huge responsibility and a scene for me to top it and to photograph it. It's actually just too much, so I always try, if it's a big scene, to have a separate photographer who can come in. Again, that's not so easy because of the material that we're working with, but definitely an advantage. Yeah, and then the other thing that we always do is we record them now. So we put a camera from the top looking down so that we can go back and we can always take the stills off the camera, but also so that we can have a look and see where we're improving and we're getting better, or we're not getting better.
Well, we do have a really cool time-lapse video of the entire experience, which I think won't go online. It'll just be something for us all to enjoy and look back on. But yeah, it's a great time-lapse video of the entire scene, and then like a very nice little freeze frame on that end product of Twitchy flying in the air, which is, yeah, it's cool to capture.
Yeah. Guys, I'm so grateful for your time, and I just just huge respect. And as always, the team is so privileged to have you with us. We're going to see the Stencil Lab again soon. Tell us about the competition that's going on at the moment, just in case people are living under a rock and haven't seen it.
So we are running a competition with Rain of Blood at the moment for Ordeal 2025. There are 2 stencils that you can do. They're both free to download off Rain of Blood's Patreon, and there's a link in both of our profiles to their Patreon. There's one stencil that's 18 needles and all single pickups, and then there's another stencil which is
40?
about 40 needles. I need to double check that one. All single pickups as well, but a little bit more of a challenging design. So anyone willing to give them one of them a go or both of them a go, you can enter twice. But yeah, download them, do your work, upload a picture, and make sure you tag both of us and hashtag Ordeal 2025. And then there is a prize at the end for a $50 voucher to the Stencil Lab and 2 tickets to Ordeal 2025 as well.
And we'll give them a month of Patreon. We'll give them a month of Patreon from Vampire Academy. So if you haven't
to remember them all.
There's too many prizes.
Right? Yeah. So guys, if you haven't checked us out on Patreon, please do so. I'm loving the messages that I'm getting. Keep communicating with the team. We love to hear from you. And from my dungeon in a very sunny Cape Town, South Africa, to you, wherever you are, lots of love and kitten kisses.